Today, two men communicate their criminal plan in an unconventional way by using broken French and Star Wars code. I want to give a quick thanks to Ekster for sponsoring this video. Ekster Wallet has been my preferred wallet for a while now. My old wallets were always way too thick, uncomfortable for me. Ekster has fixed that with these new slim and stylish wallets here. They have come up with some solutions in the wallet game. For example, the card mechanism is a really cool and quick way to get your cards out. You just push the button here and boom, cards. Not to mention how safe these things are. You've got RFID protection for one, and not only that, but these things are trackable too. You can track this thing worldwide using this solar-powered trackable card here. Using the app, you can even make it start ringing so that you can find it nearby as well. Ah, there it was all along. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these yourself, check out the description below. Act fast, because there's a Christmas sale going on right now where you can get up to 35% off using my code in the link. Once again, thank you to Ekster for sponsoring this video. It was 2014, just a few months before Christmas. In Coventry, a town in central England, a 34-year-old woman named Samina Imam, a local marketing manager for Costco, was in a bit of trouble. She had a bit of a romantic dispute going on. She was having an affair with a work colleague, a cash-and-carry boss named Roger Cooper, age 41, and had been doing so for 2 years. She herself was not married and presumably only in a relationship with him. He, however, though, was already married. Not only that, but they risked being fired if they were caught having a workplace affair. As one could assume, this kind of relationship was rocky, to say the least, and less than ideal. Since the very beginning of Roger and Samina's relationship, the two had been going back and forth on what to do about his marriage. Samina wasn't too content with being his silver medal for too much longer and started putting on the pressure to end things with his wife. Discussions led to pressure, and pressure led to an ultimatum. Eventually, Samina put her foot down. She told Roger that she wouldn't settle for being an affair partner any longer. Either he would break things off with his wife, or she would walk away. Surprisingly, he went along with the ultimatum and agreed that, by Christmas, everything would change. He promised that the two would spend Christmas together at the Malmaison Hotel in Birmingham. By the time the new year came around, they would be all set to get a fresh start together as an exclusive, no-baggage couple. It was all she wanted for Christmas, so naturally she was overjoyed to hear the news. Those around her said that she was happier than usual, busy preparing for her Christmas trip. But this isn't actually what Roger wanted. Far from it. He was nowhere near ready to end his marriage. Not only that, he felt that if he were to refuse the ultimatum and dump Samina, that she would expose their affair and he would risk losing his job. As relationships were so strictly prohibited, it is very likely, he would probably lose it. Torn between either losing his marriage or losing his job, he was met with the consequences of his actions, and he felt cornered. After much internal debate, Roger decided that he wanted Samina out of his life, for good. Enter Roger's younger brother, David Cooper, a 39-year-old ex-Army reservist. The two brothers met up and began to discuss what Roger should do about his predicament. While Samina was planning out her new life, she had no idea that they were planning on ending it. They decided that the best, if not only, solution to the problem would be to take her out. By Christmas, they wanted her dead. Roger and Samina were planning a smaller, more local hotel outing about 2 weeks before the big Birmingham hotel trip. The two brothers decided that this hotel trip would be the ideal time to end her life. On December 12th of 2014, Roger and Samina planned to go to a Christmas party, and then, later, at the Solihull Premier Inn, they would spend the night together. He told Samina to meet up at the hotel and that he would catch up later. He said that he had booked a room for her, in which he had planned a surprise. Little did she know he had never booked a hotel room, and the surprise, unsurprisingly, was anything but positive. Roger and David had been plotting their crime in an odd way. They decided that, as code, they would use Star Wars lingo to discuss their plans. Death Star complete. Stay on target. You are expected, Vader. Their plan failed to come to fruition. To this day, it still isn't quite clear why, even to detectives. David waited in the car outside of the hotel, ready to abduct Samina. As the brothers communicated via text in their coded language, Samina arrived at the hotel by taxi and made it inside. Perhaps she was let out too close to the door and David never had the chance to grab her, between the taxi leaving and Samina reaching the door. Either way, David texted his brother in, for some reason, broken French now, saying what basically translated to, "There was no point, no score. The window is closed." The brothers were a bit let down that their plan had failed before it even started, but they weren't really willing to take a loss on this one. They decided to simply start over and come up with a new plan instead, or maybe just do the same thing again. They decided that, 2 weeks later on Christmas Eve, they would strike again, or attempt to strike at least. Roger already had plans to meet Samina at another hotel, after all. That afternoon, the couple left work separately, at different times, in different cars. CCTV footage showed that they both left several minutes apart at around 4 p.m. after getting off work, likely not wanting to be suspected of being in a relationship. A little ways away, once they were both in the clear, they met up once again. Samina unpacked some luggage from her car and loaded it into Roger's Audi. She left her car parked in a safe, quiet road and hopped in with Roger, ready to start their night together. They sped off towards Leicester. This was where David lived. Samina was likely told that this would be a small detour on their way to Birmingham. In the car, Samina spoke with her loved ones for the last time. She texted her sister, asking her how her mom was doing. She told them that, although she couldn't be around for Christmas, she would be there the next day on Boxing Day to celebrate with them. Unfortunately, this would not be the case. They got to David's home in Leicester not long after about 5 p.m. But being winter, it was already pitch black outside. Immediately after entering the home, David attacked Samina, ambushing her. Roger joined in on the attack shortly after. Being that they were two men standing at about 6'5" and 6'7", and she was about 5'2" and fighting 2 against 1, she didn't stand much of a chance. It isn't clear how exactly the ambush went down, but eventually the two brothers smothered her with a chloroform-soaked rag. Roger had bought the chloroform on eBay a few weeks prior in preparation. Bizarrely, the two forced her to drink a concoction full of poison that they had created. This liquid consisted of a combination of several different metallic elements, including antimony, cadmium, tin, arsenic, and even mercury. Needless to say, there was no chance of surviving ingesting such an amalgamation of poisonous elements, especially while unconscious. Samina was dead by 6:25 p.m., but likely much earlier, soon after she entered the home. Minutes later, Roger set off on his journey back home to Coventry. David was left with the task of disposing of the body. Roger had taken Samina's phone with him. In order to cover their tracks, he started texting himself from her phone as soon as he got home. He had planned to give the impression that they weren't in the same place together. Ironically, he did this by implying that they had gotten into an argument, ending her messages with, "I am fuming. I am going to the place where I am truly cared for." Presumably, he thought this would make it seem that she had another lover, a violent one. But all he really did was show that he was the last person to have a conversation with her. A conversation that ended in a fight, nonetheless. At the same time, David was grappling with how exactly to dispose of the body. In less than a few hours, he was burying her on a small, quiet allotment he had owned on Groby Road out in Leicester. He wrapped the body in shrink wrap and put it into an army-issue sleeping bag. He dug a deep hole and buried her far underground where, he hoped, it wouldn't be possible to find her. Ironically enough, David had this sign hanging from a shed near the burial site. For those of you only listening, it says, "Don't wind me up, I'm running out of places to hide the bodies." Whether or not this sign was placed there before or after the murder is unclear, but it is creepy and ironic nonetheless. The two weren't quite done yet. Samina's disappearance was bound to be discovered soon enough. She was all set to meet with her family on Boxing Day, and that obviously wasn't going to happen. They had to plan out how to cover their tracks even more. They took her car, wiped it clean of fingerprints and DNA, and abandoned it 65 miles away in Luton. When she failed to appear at her family dinner, the police were notified and they soon began their search. For a while, there was no trace of her, but on January 4th, her car was discovered. Notably, her handbag was not there, neither was her suitcase or any of the items she had been buying while shopping. The police actually found it more suspicious that there were no fingerprints in the car. It had clearly been wiped down. The driver's seat was notably also pushed back far too much for someone who was only 5'2". Despite there not being a body, this was quickly seen as foul play. It wasn't too hard for detectives to put the pieces together. Information started lining up bit by bit. The data from Samina's phone showed that she had traveled to Leicester. The police learned of her affair with Roger as well. Knowing that he had a brother in that area, they searched David's home. In it, they found a bottle of wine that Samina had bought for Christmas. They found her snacks too, and her navigation system as well. They then received a tip from an anonymous local who told them that they should check the allotment on David's property. Finding disturbed ground, they began to excavate the lot. It was taking some time, but nobody was discouraged. They had a strong gut feeling that this was where they would find the body. And on the 4th day of digging, they did. An edge of a sleeping bag protruded out from beneath the dirt. They uncovered it, removed it, and opened it, revealing Samina inside. Roger and David were arrested 3 days later on the 7th of January on suspicion of murder. 2 days later, they were both charged. Roger cried out loud while being interrogated about Samina's disappearance.
Start with the day that you saw it, last day you saw it.
It was around 4 p.m, but I haven't got that specific time, so it's around 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And I was leaving, so I gave the regional manager a hug because it was Christmas.
Yeah.
And wished her Happy Christmas. And Sam says, "Where's mine then?" So I went over there and gave her a hug. So I'll talk to you later. And then I left. And within 5 minutes, I'm sure it's within 5 minutes, she phoned.
Okay, she's phoned you. What did you say?
She's saying that. So I'll see you tonight then. Like, no, I'm not going to be there. She's just trying to persuade me one more time.
They languished in prison for months and months until their trial finally started. It became clear during the trial that they had both spent months planning the murder. Their goofy, coded language was revealed to the court, along with their broken French text messages, and the mountain of other evidence, such as records of them buying chloroform on eBay, which was found in her system, and the CCTV footage of Roger and Samina driving off together on the night of her disappearance. Needless to say, it was a pretty cut-and-dry case. David did, after being charged, admit to the murder. He told police that Samina had passed away on his couch. He said that he poured the chloroform out onto a rag and put it over her face to, quote, shut her up.
This lady, I didn't know her name, she died on my sofa. And it was this woman who I knew to be an associate of my brother's. And she was like, "Where's Roger?" Like, stepping in the house. I was like, "He's not here, he's gone." And she was like, "I haven't seen him leave." And I was like, "Well, I'll call him. He's just left." And she was like walking through the house. And I said, "Look, just sit down and I'll call him," knowing that I wasn't going to call him. Because clearly, in my mind, for my own reasons, I imagined she was looking for him. And I knew that he wanted to go home, and I knew that he didn't want her knowing where he lived. So I was like, gotta let him get away. This sounds really silly, but I was like, okay. So I got her to sit on the sofa. She was moaning. I don't recall what she was saying, but she was like, "We've made plans. He's supposed to be seeing me." Things like this. And so in my kitchen, I've got an ammo box, a military ammo tin, which I think is normal. And in that, I had a bottle of chloroform. And because seeing it on telly, and I thought it was okay, I thought I'll just shut her up because my walls are paper thin, I don't want a scene, and I want to give Roger a few minutes. I got the chlorophyll, I poured it over a tea towel, and my kitchen is like 2 steps beneath floor level of the lounge. and my sofa is right next to the doorway, and I just went in and put it across her face, thinking that it would come out. As stupid and naive as it sounds, I did think that it would just buy me some time. And I kind of put it on her face, sat on her lap, and her arms went up, and I grabbed her arms and I forced them down, and I was like, just a couple of breaths. And she didn't wake up, so...
It was felt that he was doing all that he could to absolve his brother of any guilt. A great brother, but a horrible person. It became clear that they had killed a woman merely because she was inconvenient to them. It was easier for them to end a life than to own up to Roger's mistakes. The text messages sent from Samina's phone to Roger didn't fool the courts one bit. We've all seen crime dramas. We know this is standard issue stuff by now. Roger hadn't even taken into account that Samina's phone could be tracked, and the tracking led directly back to his own home at the time when Samina was apparently not supposed to be with him, texting him from afar. It was determined that Roger simply couldn't let his wife learn of his affair, and he couldn't lose his job either. That was seen as more than enough motivation to commit the crime. What is a mystery, though, is why his brother agreed to help him kill a woman that he didn't even know, just to cover up his mistakes. Interestingly, the court learned that the affair with Samina Imam hadn't been the only affair that Roger had been having at the time. He was also in a relationship with another co-worker. This was something that, presumably, Samina had not known of. With this other affair partner, Roger had revealed a much darker side of his character. He had told her to never cross him, and that he was a dangerous person when backed into a corner. And that's exactly what Samina did with her ultimatum. The trial continued for 10 weeks, throughout which there was very little doubt about the brothers' guilt, although they adamantly denied any fault. The judge told the brothers, "The use of a poison in a case such as this demonstrates a cold-blooded intention to kill, regardless of the consequences." The autopsy had shown that the chloroform was the actual cause of death, but the high levels of other metals in her body definitely did not help matters.
It's an extremely unusual way to kill somebody. It's something that you see on television or in fiction. It's a very rare cause of murder or death in real life. And it would have been a real mystery to us how Samina had died if David Cooper hadn't, in fact, confessed to the fact that he'd exposed her to chloroform in his post-charge confessions.
In October, the two brothers were found guilty unanimously by the jury. They were both given a low 30 years each. By the next Christmas, they were both rotting away in prison. And once again, thank you for watching my videos. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It really helps me out. If you like dark content like this, feel free to subscribe because that's what I do. And if you want to support the channel even further, I do have a Patreon account that I've got down in the description below. Speaking of which, shout out to my top patrons. Callahan, Jules Latona, Arctic Cat, Alan Damiani, Adrian Lawley, Winnicott, Murray Joel Sanchez, David McLaughlin, Marsh, Buffazerk, Lonro, Jewel Mavchan, Lori Tayaba, Kim Peak, Lux Alpaca, Charity, Skooky Maine, Jackie, and Teresa Ferguson. You guys are pretty good. Thank you, and good night.